Welcome to Middle Fingers Up. I'm your host, Kieran, and where do I start today? How about we start at we all as human beings process life experiences, all the things in between different. We all look for ways to make sense of what we're feeling, what we've lived through. And we don't always maybe have the language to articulate or express, but our gut, parts of our body are always experiencing and feeling, maybe before we're ready to catch up and understand what it means. And there was this time when the culture was so thick in suppressing everything. You don't talk about it. You look so good when you present to be strong, but inside maybe you're suffering and you're not doing well. And I think these days, we're kind of in this moment where many of us are learning that there are different ways to find connection, validation, reflection, all those kinds of things that maybe we were taught to not really openly go there about. And I think part of that is because we are in this part of life where there are so many different ways to process and express. So for some, talking is too intimate, it's too foreign. And so there's other ways to let out the things that are on our mind. And I think today's guest, meet Sarah. Sarah does this so well. She's all about art, all about expression, and she talks about the things that we're experiencing, maybe even relationships or in our personal life, the little in-betweens that don't get highlighted. And she zones in on those moments. And those moments allow us to, I think if you ever have already checked out her comics, you'll instantly feel like, oh my God, that is me. Or that was a moment in a relationship I was in, or I learned that with this group of friends. And I love how she highlights that for us and allows us a moment to process, to feel a sense of belonging. Because I think no matter how we want to process or express what is on our mind, the one thing that we all can relate to is we want to belong, we want safety, and we want at least one person out there to validate the thing that we are going through. And her work does that for us. I reached out to Sarah a little while ago. One of her particular comics really stood out to me, kind of froze me in a moment. And it's this beautiful picture of a woman sitting at a table with a bunch of friends. And the thought bubble is like, I kind of don't want to be here anymore. And maybe those aren't the exact words, but that's sort of what I took from it. And it just felt very familiar to me. And I think that when you go through her content, it's not even just the comics, it's the personal life experiences that she talks about as well, where you find this instant connection. And so I'm so excited to learn about this human who is just so curious and so aware of all the things that you and I are experiencing on a day-to-day. So welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and chat with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for such a lovely introduction. I'm like, is that me? Wow. But thank you.
Yeah, it's
I'm
you.
happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. It is an honor. It is you. Well, we're going to get to know you. We're going to get to know how you do what you do, because I know it's not just me. I see how many people write comments, even share your work. And so that's always very telling about how relevant what you're doing is. So maybe before we get started, if people aren't already following you, where can they find you? Where would be the best place?
So I'm on Instagram and TikTok, but I'm more on Instagram than anything. So my username is Sarah Akinterinwa. I think there's an underscore somewhere. I think it's Sarah _Akinterinwa. And it's spelled AKINTERINWA and Sarah with a H. And you can find me on Instagram and send me a DM.
Yeah, she'll respond. She's so great at that.
Yeah.
And I'll also have that in the show notes too for anyone that maybe didn't catch that in the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to just get into it with you because I have been chomping at the bits to have this conversation with you. So the first thing I want to do with you is that it's kind of like become sort of a ritual question that I ask my guests because I think a lot of who we were as, you know, little Sarahs, little Kierans shapes who we are today. And so I'd love for you to get in this little time machine that I've built. It's safe. You can get in there with me. And let's go back, and I'd like you to pick an age. Like if you could go back into this time machine and pick an age to go see yourself, what age would you pick to go see yourself? And knowing what you know now, like what would you go back and tell yourself?
Oh, it's a good question. I think I would go back to about 17.
Ooh.
Yeah, long time ago. And the reason why I'd go back is because I think that's like such a significant time in my life. I think it was a time where I was starting to really deeply think about friendship and dating and who am I and what do I bring into the world? Do I matter? I was thinking about just the whole scope of my identity and my belonging. And I would go back and tell myself that you have a long way to go, but you've come a long way as well. Like you will have so many identities and you're allowed to be selective about your friends and the people you have around you. And but I think most importantly, I'd say you have to be a friend to yourself, because I think at that age when you're 17 and like your whole identity very much is, you know, where you are socially, like you're very interested in your social life, you want to be out with your friends, you want to be dating. And I think I just tell myself like, be a friend to yourself first and make sure you're making the right friends, because I don't think I always had the right friends and I don't think I always dated the right people. And I think if I had a better relationship with myself, I would have been surrounded by better people. So that's that's quite deep, I know, for a
That's
start.
so well
But
said.
yeah.
It's always hindsight, right? The things we learn as we grow. I mean, I know that's part of life, but it is
Mhm.
sometimes still possible to go back and tell those parts of ourselves, like, I got you, I
Mhm.
got it. And I feel like that's a lot of what you do in your work. And so
Yeah.
you mentioned belonging, and a little bit of what I'm picking up, you know, at 17 too, is like this whole fitting in. So
Yeah.
like, when did you first realize the difference between what is belonging and what is fitting in, or maybe they're the same thing?
Mm. I think it's quite complex. And I wish I had a straightforward answer, because I come from so many different spaces. I've lived in so many different places. So feeling belonging is really important for fitting in, feeling a
Yeah.
sense of belonging. And I grew up in Ireland. I was born in the UK and I left the UK when I was a baby and moved to Ireland until I was about 10, came back to the UK. And that was very tricky for me, because I didn't feel like I belonged. You know, I had like an Irish accent. I went from Ireland, a town in Ireland which was predominantly white, to a town in the UK which was predominantly white, but very different cultures, very different ways of being. Irish people, British people, very different. And just never, like, I didn't fit in Ireland really, but I had like community. But then I moved to the UK and I had no community and I didn't fit in. You know, I didn't know how to be a Black British girl because there weren't that many Black British girls around me. I didn't really get along very well with my white peers. I just sort of pretended to, even though I didn't really identify with them or I don't know. It took years for me to feel like, okay, I belong. I think, a Black British identity for children and young people is like, it's different depending on where you are in the UK. I didn't grow up in London, where I guess there's a really big Black British community. So, you know, being in a small town, I guess that really did impact my sense of belonging and my sense of identity a lot. Even to this day, I'm like, am I Black British enough? Am I Black enough? But I've learned to just accept that, you know, I'm Black and that's it. And I'm a Black woman. I'm proud of being Black. I have Black friends. I'm British, and my identity will never be straightforward, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think you say that so well, because I think there's all these
Mm.
complexity. It's complex. How about I say
Yeah.
that? When, especially because you are also a child of immigrants too, so
Yeah.
you have a huge influence there as well, and you're navigating that process for the first time because your parents are navigating a different process. As at least that's would be my experience. Mine were survivors trying to just get through it, figure it out, work, and toughen their skin. And so some of that gets passed on, but then it's a different process because it's like your background, you're Nigerian, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, are you Nigerian enough? Are you Black enough? Are you Western enough? All these kinds of things. And so it's like you get to this place in life where you're like, why do people get to tell you?
Yeah.
If you're, like this is a process of growing up as a kid of immigrants. Like you're going to be in that in between, and you're going to learn things in a bit of a different way. So I want, like, was that sort of part of that process for you too, having all these different categories to belong to, but then maybe not fitting in?
Yeah, no, I feel you, because what you said about your parents being immigrants and the hustle and the culture, they bring so much, like it's such a rich but also complex experience having immigrant parents. And my parents too were hustlers. They worked hard, especially my mom, and like there was that issue of being Nigerian enough as well. When I get home, it's like that's not how we do things in our culture. When you get into this house, you do things the Nigerian way. There was always, that conflict between my identity, my European identity and my Nigerian identity. Punishment was different at home than it was at school. Things that probably weren't legal, like punishments and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's like, it's just so interesting because, the world is telling me to behave like this, but at home, I'm being told like, that's not how you should behave. That's not how you should think. And of course, like that does impact my identity. So now I'm an adult now, I'm having to choose like parts of the culture that I would like to keep. I would like to know how to cook my food. I believe in respecting my elders, not blindly respecting them, but of course, like treating older people with love and respect, as long as they respect me. And I believe in like community, family. Those are things that I love about my culture, but there's some things that I don't love and I won't hold on to. And then the same with my British culture. I don't love every part of it. I don't really love the food. And I make sure I cook like Nigerian food and stuff like that. So it's like, that's the interesting thing about having like a dual identity, is that it's kind of like a buffet of cultural bits of culture that you can keep and use that to make up your own identity in a sense. So yeah, definitely feel that conflict sometimes.
And I love that, because you're right. It's a buffet and it's a privilege. And I feel very fortunate. And I think even in some of your comics, there's one beautiful one that you talk about, like immigrants. And you're in a part of Canada now. I'm in a part of Canada, and there's a lot of talk about get the immigrants out of here. And there's a lot of hate towards many of us. And it's just like building and building. And I think it's so interesting in how the two women in this comic are talking about the things that we underestimate that people from other cultures bring. And we're so on the topic of what they're not bringing. But it's like when you're always taking a supplement, a vitamin, and you don't really know it's working, and then like you stop taking the vitamin, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't realize how badly I needed this. And I just feel like that's the best way to describe people, are like, get them out of here. But as the comic talks about, we wouldn't have language, we wouldn't have different cultures, we wouldn't have different flavors, essentially. And I don't know if you want to add to that. That one really stood out to me as well, because it's like, we're talking about all these other things that really aren't necessarily the most impactful in the way of being around people that come from different parts of the world. And I think that's what shapes us in the Western world. If you want to add to that.
Yeah, I do think that some people don't have a full understanding of belonging and community. I think they think belonging and community means everyone looks like each other and everyone behaves the same and is from the same background. And that's where racism and xenophobia breeds, is that, we can only be a group if we all think and walk and talk and have all been through the same things. And it's just not true. Like, that's just not going to be enough to sustain community. I think community really does require people from different worlds to come together, different backgrounds, different skills, different languages, different economic statuses, different ideas, histories. I think that's very important for a really true, rich community and belonging. And yeah, I mean, being here in Canada, it's so interesting because I know like people have told me about the anti-immigration issues, the racism issues, and it's quite shocking because the PR for Canada and the UK is great, you know, to like, oh, Canada's the place to be. Everyone's just so nice, and like when I get here, I hear from a lot of people of color that that's not actually their experience. It's more so like never quite feeling like you truly belong and always feeling like you have to try to belong, but you never really achieve that sense of belonging or like feeling of acceptance. And I'm like, yeah, that's also an issue in the UK, and it was an issue in Ireland and for a lot of my American friends too. And I just think it goes back to people not fully understanding belonging, the importance of immigrants and how much immigrants bring so much. Like my parents went to the UK, they work extremely hard and have made a huge contribution to the economy. They built businesses, they raised up me and my siblings who also contribute to of course, the UK economy. Immigrants don't travel thousands of miles away from home to do nothing. They're hard workers and they bring so much to everywhere they go. And I just think it's so sad that a lot of people just don't understand that, refuse to understand it. And I think it's just very willful ignorance. And
I would agree. And I think for you to have an outlet, the way you express what's happening in the world, personal experiences, global, I think, you know, that's a great way to utilize your skill and your talent. Because one thing that I've noticed in the conversations the characters are having in your work, it's pretty intimate, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way because it's coming out through a comic. And I think it's like really cool that you choose to go there about some of the things that, whether, like I said, it's personal or what's happening globally and everything in between. Even like you talk about patriarchy, misogyny, and like a new couple that's getting to know each other, right? And then the guy's like, what turns you on? And she's like, a guy that goes to therapy, like, you know, and I'm like, oh my God. And all the other things that she throws in there. And I love it because I think we are so divided as communities, even in the South Asian community. There's divide between us, and I would imagine for you as well. And I think when we have these different ways of expressing and looking at something outside of us, we are more inclined to be curious about it. And I want to talk a little bit about that, your work. So I'm curious, like, how did you get to this place? Like, did the art find you? Did you find the art? Like, how did this whole process start for you to do the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the work we found each other basically. Yeah, like I've always been an artist. I've always just loved drawing, loved creating, and I wanted to be an artist growing up, but I just, being again from an immigrant household, it's not the plan. You can't be an artist. You have to get a real job. So I just allow myself to dream like that. And I really pursued a real job. I wanted to be a therapist or work in schools or work with the community providing therapeutic services. And that's what I did for a while. And then the pandemic happened and I quit my job. And I was like, before the pandemic happened, I quit my job and was like, this is so boring. I need a creative career. But I didn't think I wanted to be an artist. I thought I could just like work in media. I could be like social media manager or something, right? And then I moved home, and then the pandemic started, and like I was stuck now with no job, no apartment, just like at home sleeping on the sofa. And I was really sad and stressed and didn't know what was going to happen for me. So I started drawing a cartoon. I started a comic called Oyin and Kojo just as a way to pass time during the lockdown while we were all quarantined. And I would like make it a mission, like every day I'm going to draw a cartoon every day and just post it on Instagram for my family and friends. And it started to like grow and people started to follow. And then the cartoon editor at the New Yorker reached out to me and was like, would you like to be a cartoonist for us? Would you like to contribute? And I was like, hell yeah. And then I started it, and it just grew from there, and I created a career around it, and the rest is history. Like it all happened almost accidentally, but yeah, I'm incredibly grateful for it that I fell into this career essentially.
Yeah, because the New Yorker and the Guardian, so you have some really cool magazines. Who gets to say that is how their career ends up? That's amazing.
Thank you.
To be on this couch and be like, what's going on? And you kind of trust the process in some ways, like, let's see where it goes. And I'm glad that this happened because people like me then get to also accept the reach of all the work that you put out there. So like for you, having it featured in the New Yorker, the Guardian, your Instagram blowing up, TikTok, people really connecting, like what kind of feedback do you get? What sort of sits with you when people respond to the work that you're putting out there?
Well, I have so like the kind of work I do varies so much. Sometimes it's like as simple as a gag cartoon for the New Yorker, and it's just like a funny little moment. And then other times it's like a very deep, emotional, thought-provoking comic that I post on my personal page. And for the Guardian, it's a bit of both, like thought-provoking but quite funny. And I get all kinds of responses depending on where my work is found. Most of the time, it's people really resonating, like, oh, yeah, I've been through that. Oh, yeah, I never thought about it like that. Thank you for putting words to and images to my experience. And other times, you have people like, especially men, white men, when like I'm talking to the women of color about our experience, sometimes it does pertain to them, like, oh, men do this, this is how we feel. I'm not talking to men, I'm talking about you. And they feel the need to like be in my comment making racist comment. People have no idea how many racist, sexist comments I delete regularly. DMs I get, people, red pill men, right wing men, Americans. I'm like, I'm not even in America, attacking me. Like, there's always going to be like some pushback, and that's okay. When you're a woman of color creating for women of color, I don't know why like it's a thing sometimes where there's people who want to push back. But for the most part, I have like the most amazing community of people, the most amazing feedback. And it makes me really proud to do the work I do, that I'm able to create conversations around these really often taboo subjects. So I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, man, those white men, like sometimes even
Oh.
white women too. Like I get that too. And I feel like the work is resonating with them so much, and they have not done the work or understanding of like why, and so then it comes out in the way it has. Because I agree, I've had like nasty things said to me, and I'm like, oh, that's a compliment because that hit you hard. Okay, that's cool. We'll keep talking about that. Like, and I think that people, like will crash our parties all the time. That's sort of going back to childhood too, in the way that we grew up. And I think it's challenging that whole process of us trying to unassimilate now. And when we were following that, or at least for me, when I was following that, I'd get the white men and women saying the greatest things to me. And late now it's the opposite, and whatever. I think there are still some of those people, the white men and women, that will get it and are willing to continue to do the work. And it's those weird ones that you're like, peace out, but overall, when you're talking to people like me and other women of color, I know I can't speak for all of us, but I would imagine for most of us, it is way more impactful than those people saying the shit that they say, because they just have to insert themselves and everything. And it's like, bro, your time is up. Like,
exactly.
Get over it.
I know, right? And it's a kind of policing as well, I will say. Like, we, if we get in line, that's policing. But if we step out of line, they want to police how we express. If you are living in a white space and you exist authentically, it's like, no, you have to appease me. You have to be likable. You have to be silent. You can't talk about us. You can't talk about how we make you feel. And it's like, there's no winning. I think the best approach is be as authentic as possible and be outspoken and tell the truth that this is how being a woman of color feels for me, and I won't be quiet about it, and I don't care who it bothers. So we can't win. That's just how the cookie crumbles.
No, for sure. But I do feel like there is winning, because when women like you talk about the things that you are, and some other women of color that I've had the privilege of meeting or coming across their work, it really helps strengthen that genuineness that you're talking about in women like me who are figuring that whole thing out. With, like you said, we have multiple identities, and some of us are just kind of understanding. It's like this, I think it's called the Johari window, but it's, I mean, you were the therapist. Like, it's that model, that window of, I know what I know, but no one knows about
Yeah.
me, my blind spots, and I haven't quite filled those out.
Yeah.
Then there's that piece that no one knows, and it's a self-awareness window that
Yeah.
we're tapping into, and our gut is kind of helping us figure it out. And I think all those elements help build the strength in our self-awareness. So when people like you voice the experiences that women like me all the way over here are having too, it is so impactful. It's very therapeutic to have other women be like, yeah, this shit does happen. Here's my version of it. And then there's those of us that are like, okay, that gives me permission to also speak up and challenge those spaces, predominantly those white spaces that I've been in, by saying, okay, I'm going to show up like me, and you'll have to decide if you can handle it, because I'm done appeasing you, as you said. So
exactly.
it's so meaningful. It's so meaningful.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Honestly, that's exactly how I would love it to feel, is that you have permission to talk about something that you haven't really felt you were allowed to talk about, especially the very awkward things. I think that when it comes to women and our issues, our emotional issues, our experiences, it's like we're often told to be silent about it, that it's too womanly, it's too emotional, it's embarrassing to feel so much, to struggle so much. And sometimes like we're the only one that's listening, but the whole world needs to know that, sometimes we experience jealousy, sometimes we experience embarrassment, we struggle with our bodies, we struggle with friendships, we struggle with all sorts of things, and it's not awkward or it doesn't have to be so hush. We're allowed to be loud about these things and have a conversation. And that doesn't make us weak. It's just part of the human experience. And yeah, this is just what I'm doing for us as women, is like, shedding light on these very real experiences. And I really love that you said what you said about permission, because yeah, we are allowed to talk about it. And it's almost my way of also saying to myself, I'm allowed to talk about it too, and I'm allowed to draw about it. So yeah.
Yeah. What has that done for you since being on the couch, playing around with your talent to where you are now, and this feedback that you've been getting? Like, what are some things that you have learned about yourself that maybe you wouldn't have had you not quit that job and gotten to where you are?
Oh, that's a really good question. What have I learned about myself? I think I've learned that I guess politically a lot. I've learned a lot about the politics around myself and the work that I do, because I'm now like, I have a public facing career now, where it's different to working in an office, like, because I'm getting so much feedback about my work. I'm seeing what spaces I'm being invited to and what spaces I'm not invited to. And I've learned that as many accolades as I have, I won't be invited to every table. I don't have a seat at every table. And the importance of creating my own opportunities as a woman of color, as a cartoonist woman. I've learned that the importance of being loud and not stopping. It's my mission to continue to elevate us, tell our stories, and have fun with it. And that's something I learned about myself, that I can do it. I grew up in a council estate, which is like, I don't know what the equivalent of that is in Canada. It's like for working class families. And people like me don't go to the places that I go. I feel very privileged, and I'm learning what people like me are capable of, and through what I'm capable of. I learned that I'm capable of a lot. That's one major thing I learned, is that I can do a lot, and my work does matter. My art does matter. And even though my immigrant parents may have lovingly told me being an artist doesn't get you anywhere, I've learned that it does. It gets you anywhere you want to go, as long as you believe in yourself and you put in the work and you learn some business skills. It does get you somewhere. So much. I could go on and on. Like, I've learned so much, honestly, through this journey.
Yeah. And where do you get your inspiration? I had mentioned in the intro, for me, when I read your comics, it's the in-betweens. Like, you zone in and highlight such an important part of the process of a conversation that sometimes can get overlooked. Like, you mentioned jealousy. That was a really good one too, where you challenged the idea of that, right? Like, the way that we've seen it on TV, the way that we've grown up with it in the media, pop culture, music, just like, it's such a bad thing. And I have maybe I'm asking you a question, but I'll give you an example. Like, I was recently in an environment where multiple things are happening. Someone is getting married, and some people are exiting a marriage. And, it'd be the same with someone's having a baby, and maybe some people are struggling to to get pregnant. So
Mm-hmm.
these sorts of experiences are brought in a room together. And
Mm-hmm.
when we have that window that we're not aware of the things that are going on for us, we
Mm-hmm.
leak as humans. It
Yeah.
comes out in all these other, sometimes toxic ways,
Yeah.
belligerent ways,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the opposite and what. And so I loved that jealousy one, because I really experienced that of the late, where, okay, all these multiple things are going on and no one can talk about it. And we're all just like
Yeah.
functioning
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, but we're all feeling the leaking of the other parties in this
Mm-hmm.
moment. And so, and it's because we're not allowed to openly say,
Yeah.
I'm happy for you, but I'm also struggling because this life that
Mm-hmm.
I'm in isn't what I dreamt of. Your
Exactly.
life is what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it. And so instead it comes out in all these ways. So that comic, it's so funny. Like, I read it and I was like, oh my God, I literally was in a situation recently where this is exactly what happened, where if we could have just been able to say, I'm fucking jealous of the
Yeah.
fact that blah, 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 blah is
Mm-hmm.
happening. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so where do you get your fuel for these comics that hit so good?
Mm. I think like what you described as like people at different life stages and maybe desiring. Someone actually told me it was more envy than jealousy, like when you want something that someone else has, which is just so human. It's normal. Like we experience it all the time. I scroll through my phone and I see like influencers flying first class to, I don't know, the Maldives. I'm like, I would love that. I deserve that. That's not fair, but I let myself feel it. I think we don't have the language a
Yeah.
lot of the time. We don't have the skills. A lot of us weren't taught the skills to experience what we're feeling and validate that, empathize with ourselves and give ourselves that compassion. I think it's very difficult to navigate envy, jealousy without compassion and having the self-awareness to be like, I know what I'm feeling, and it's not really about that other person, it's about me. It's
Mm-hmm.
that I'm feeling something that my body is telling me that I want something. It's not telling me that there's a problem with that other person. I think whenever I give language and obviously images to these experiences, it comes from being I'm very observant.
Yes,
You
you
know,
must be. Yes.
I have to be, and I guess it comes from the way I grew up as a child. Being very disempowered as a child means you are silent, but you're watching a lot. I was a watcher and I was very quiet. In school, I was quiet and I wasn't just, a plank of wood. I was actually observing and absorbing so much, studying, learning how to fit in, how to talk, how to think, everyone's behaviors. And I think that's what really contributes to my deep understanding and fascination with human behavior and human thought and everything human. It's like my special interest is people.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that really does help me with my work, and it helps me to tell stories and show conversations that we should be having or that we do have at home with friends or on the phone or with family. It really does help me. But I think the reason why a lot of people enjoy the comics is because they've never really been able to have those conversations, or they don't have like I said, the skill, they were never given it the emotional tools to navigate a lot of these things that I talk about. And I guess it's kind of my way of almost giving it to them, how to
Yeah.
talk about these things, how to think about these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, so well said. And I think there's another element to even like the topic of jealousy, even the relationship where the bar is. I think when
Mm,
it's the layer is like, as people of color, we're always, I would feel, because of all this surviving and intergenerational trauma and all these sorts of things, like our ancestors, our families, the generations have been
mhm.
working through, where we could be isn't quite where we are. And so
Yeah.
sometimes when we enter these circles, when we see the one person of color that is the influencer going to those
Mm,
beaches, it's like, yeah, I do want that too, but it's
yeah.
so out of it's so hard to explain them. And maybe it's in that window where I'm feeling it, but I don't know how to do it yet. It's like,
Mm,
it's like, it's so out of our world,
yeah.
and I think even like, this is why Beyonce was such a big hit for a lot
Yeah.
of us people of color, because it's like, we don't have regular people in our lives that are attaining that. And so then this jealousy, I think, is even stronger, or the envy, because it's not like so many, you know, people of color, women of color that are in that spot. It's like excitement to see, because it's like, thank you for paving the way. But I think it can get internalized in such a way of like, oh, that's never gonna happen for me, because that's the one Black woman, one Asian woman, one
There's no
Indigenous
space.
woman. Yeah. So if you want to add to that or not.
No, I love that you said that because it's so real. I mean, I experience that a lot. It's so true. Like, it sometimes feel like our spaces or like slots for success, super success is limited, and it's sad. It's very much an illusion, and I think it's an illusion bred from white supremacy, that the representation for successful women is lacking for women of color. And like you said about Beyonce, I mean, I grew up like, I was very much obsessed with Beyonce, because not only was she fabulous, beautiful, like there just went there were many, but never like Beyonce's level, like super successful. Everybody loves her. She's, you know, she's celebrated, like, and you know, for cartoonists, Black women, I don't know any Black women British cartoonists.
I bet.
There aren't that very many, and it makes me think like Black women who want to be cartoonists, they probably only have like me and a few others to look to, and they probably think there are no seats at the table. There won't be a lot of opportunities for them, and this is very much not true. But I think it's very difficult to believe it to be true when there isn't enough evidence that there's enough success for everyone, more than enough to go around. And I think that's just how we were taught to think, you know, to keep us down, is that you have to work extra hard. And true, we do have to work extra hard. We have to work harder than the average white man to get to where we want to go. But that doesn't mean that destination doesn't exist. So when I do feel that like, oh, it's not fair. Like, how come why didn't I think of that idea first? Why am I not where she's supposed to be? You know, that I've missed the boat. I've missed the opportunity. And it's like, no, I let myself sit with that feeling. Like, I'm feeling a bit envious. I'm feeling frustrated, but I'm always reminding myself that this is about me. This is just me telling me what I want, not what I can't have. It's what I don't have, but it's what I want. And people always say use jealousy to motivate you, but it's like, sometimes sit with it and let it be, because there's so much shame around it, like being jealous, being envious, because we're so used to it being weaponized to hurt people, to put people down. But it's like, this is a real feeling. It doesn't have to be a bad one. Just let it be and allow multiple truths to coexist and have harmony. Like, I'm happy for her, but I'm jealous, but I want this. This is just being human, and we have so many emotions flowing through us all day, and you will have, the sooner you can accept the feelings flowing through you, the sooner you can just be at peace and get on with it, and you know, try and reach your goals instead of feeling held back by the shame of a feeling. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback. I would also like to maybe just take a moment and just do our middle fingers up segment before we start wrapping up. So let's just, pause here. And if you could put your middle fingers up to one thing, what would that thing be? I'm so curious, because you have so many things that you talk about. So
I guess, a thing. I think I would say for myself right now, and anybody who needs it, I would put my middle finger up to anything that's making you stay small. Anything, whether that's people, yes, you know, people around you, your job, a belief you have, a group you're part of, friends. There are so many things that want us women, especially women of color, to stay small, because it makes them feel great, big. Like, I don't think a lot of people would feel as great as they do without us staying small. And I want to urge anyone who is noticing something that's keeping you small to put your middle finger up to it and start playing big. Start doing little things to feel big, to grow, to expand, and to get out of those small spaces, out of the little box that someone or something has put you in. Yeah, that's what I would say today, I think.
I love that. And I would agree with that, and I will take that feedback.
Yes.
And then just a couple more quick ones. Like, is there a topic or like part of a conversation or experience that you're like, really excited to draw out and get into a comic? Like anything that you're trying to like figure out how to get to us to read and see?
Mhm. Well, at the moment, I've launched a mail club where I
Oh
will be
yeah.
going more in depth about the subjects I explore, whether that's belonging, friendship, everything womanhood, essentially. And the idea is to take you off your screens and to have you interact with the subjects I explore, whether that's through a coloring sheet. I have a letter that goes with it, where very soon I'm going to be outsourcing the letter writing to my patrons who are part of my Patreon, where I send the mail to. So every month, one of you will write a letter to everyone, and there's also stickers, and it comes with a print as well. So I've launched that. The link is in my bio on my Instagram and my TikTok, and I have a Substack. Like, I feel like I do everything. I do so much. I don't know how I do it. I'm exhausted, but I also have a Substack. Obviously, I have a Patreon and I have a Substack where I'm gonna get back to writing it, but I've got so many newsletters there that you can always read, right? Talk about a lot of the things we talked about today. And what else? I have, if you want to know what's going on with me, any news, like honestly, my Instagram is where you can find out. But in general, I'm making comics for you, and I'm making cartoons, and I'm in conversation with you all the time, with all of you, and it's really at the heart of what I do is to keep those conversations flowing and to continue to give people a space to say me too.
Yes.
And we're not alone. We're all in this together, essentially.
Is that your ultimate goal? What do you hope those of us that read your comics take? Like, what do you really hope that we learn or take from the work you're putting out for us?
Oh, I think ultimately, to put it very, very simply, it's to show people that you're human. That's it. That's, like, if I could put it in 2 words, like, you're human. It's okay. None of this is easy. And even though a lot of our experiences are continuously being oversimplified, it's not simple, and that's okay. That's what anybody who comes to my page or sees the work I do, whether it's in a magazine or a newspaper, it's just to humanize our experiences, because I don't think there's enough of that. So that's really at the heart of what I do.
I love it. Okay,
Thank you.
Sarah, anything that you wish today I did ask you, or that you want to go back and add or clarify that we didn't get a chance to really touch on?
Oh, anything that we didn't touch on? Oh, I wish we did talk a bit more about the friendship
No,
comic. I know we talked about it so much, but
no.
I think next time we
Can
definitely
we
should
do it
have.
next time?
Yeah, we should. We should have a
Yeah.
next time where we just talk about something like that, you know? I think
Okay.
that's really
Okay.
interesting.
Because
Yeah.
I had a segment about friendships, small circles, and the quiet grief. Like I had
Mm,
questions, but I think today was a good time to like get to know you. I don't you
mm,
you're very mysterious on your platform. You do share, but maybe
mm,
this is an opportunity for us to get to know the
mm,
person behind the amazing work. And I would love for you to come back because
of
that
course.
is what you and I talk so much about in our consult. And
Hmm.
I'd love to go there with you. So
Of course.
this is how I lure my guests back.
Of course. I would love to. I really enjoyed today. It was such a lovely and easy conversation to have. So thank you so much. I really appreciated this. This was great.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciated our time together, the work you're doing for all of the people out there that are connecting. I know for me as a brown woman, huge validation. And like I said earlier, we all have such different ways to process, and art is such a kind, gentle way to talk about the big, heavy things that maybe are really hard for people. And so, for anyone out there that is curious, please, please, please go check out Sarah's work, because I guarantee you there's at least one, if not all, of her work comics that will help you work through a moment in your life that maybe you're struggling with or questioning or being challenged by.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Any last words? Anything you want to leave us with?
Oof. Well, I'll leave with you. Thank you so much for being
Oh,
a
thank you.
wonderful host, and so, kind, concise, and really great questions, great observations. And I've learned so much today. Yeah, I've had a lovely time and I can't wait to come back.
Yay. Okay. I'm so happy to have you back. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
For everyone else listening, we always say these conversations are door openers. We're just as a community starting to go there, starting to be curious about the things that are going on. If you have anything you want to add, you know where to reach Sarah. I'll have it in the show notes, but you also know where to find me, and we can build from this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.